Okay, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our final workshop themed Elite Performance. We are delighted and privileged to have a former world number one, two-time world champion, David Palmer, to speak with us on these aspects. Although most of you all will be aware, I wish to highlight few of David's achievements. He has won 27 PSA titles, a four-time British Open champion, ranked top 10 in the world for 10 consecutive years, won a total of 9 Commonwealth Game medals, more than any other squash player on this planet. He's currently the head coach at Cornell University and worked with a lot of top players, which include Miguel Rodriguez, and from India, Saurav, Aditya, Joshna, Harinder, and currently working with Veer Chotrani, who's studying in the university as well. So a big welcome to you, David, and thank you for joining us. And we are here with our coaches, and we would love to hear and get all the experience possible which you can have and share with us today. Thanks, David.
No, thank you, Cyrus. It's fun to be here. Obviously, I wish I was there in person and we were standing on a squash court and going through all this. But obviously, considering what we're all going through, obviously we have to be creative, and obviously these webinars are can be very useful as well. So so again, I'm very happy to be here. Always had good memories with India and playing and traveling there and working with a lot of your players. And I really think India is one of the countries on the rise with the number of players and the level. So I'm excited what you guys are doing to improve your game. So thanks for having me. And so Cyrus asked me to talk about elite training, and I know he sent me some questions. So Cyrus, do you want to do the questions at the end, or do you want me to talk first, or what do you think is the best format?
We'll do the questions in the end.
At the end. Okay. So, all right, perfect. So when I'm obviously, again, like Cyrus said, I've been lucky enough after my career, I've worked with a lot of top players and mostly at the elite level. And the four main areas that I look at, technique, fitness, tactics, and the mental side. So there's obviously lots of different areas in all those four areas, but they're the four things that I try to break down. So when I'm starting with a player, I'm trying to evaluate and measure, okay, how are they in those four areas? And that's where I'll start with. So again, I'll start with technique. Again, it would be much easier if I was standing on a squash court and I had my racket in my hand and I could demonstrate some of these things. But I think the main point, and this is at elite level, but all levels, like if you look at all the top players in the last 20 or 30 years, what I believe is that their swings, there's definitely lots of different techniques, and you normally sometimes associate different techniques with countries, like the Egyptian type of technique, the Australian, English. So there's always been sort of a bit of a tradition, sort of where you've grown up and what type of coaches you've been coached for. But for me, if you took all the great players, you look at their swings, I believe probably like 80 to 85% of their swings, they all had the same fundamentals. And the other 15%, everyone puts their own little twist on it, their own little variations on it. But it's very important to look when you're breaking down technique that probably 80%, 85% of all the top players, all the different swings in the world, we all do the same thing as far as grip, racket preparation. And then obviously you've got your own uniqueness that you will bring to it. Some players might hold the grip a little higher, some might have it lower, some might have earlier racket preparation, but I think this is important with technique, is not to get too complicated with it, but again, just showing the kids that, again, the basis is still the important things. And no matter what the ranking of the player is, for me, again, looking at the grip, racket preparation, early racket preparation. Again, I'm always looking at these things. Is the racket up on the tee? I'm a big believer of, if you've seen me or worked with me before, I'm a big believer of having early racket preparation, having the racket up on the tee early. So these things, whether it's a junior or whether it's a top 10 player, these are things that I still look at very closely. And as you get more elite, then you start to get into, as far as the technique is, obviously the deception is another thing. Obviously that will come into it, but as a player, having the ability to adjust the size of your swing. As you know, in squash, obviously all the balls, they always come at different heights, different paces. A really good player will have the ability to change the size of their swing based on how much pressure they're under, where on the court they are. You see a lot of times in the back corners, the players will choke up on their grip and shorten their back swings to get the ball out. So these are things that need to be taught and brought in very early, I believe. So for me, one of the biggest mistakes is when people are under pressure at the front of the court and someone's put a good shot into the front, the ball's really low, and players go in with a very big backswing and way too high a preparation. So I think trying to think about how to teach your players and students how to change the size of their swing, basing it on where they are on the court, where the ball is, how high the ball is, how low it is, having the ability to move their hand. You see the top players, we move our hand up and down the grip a little bit as well. For me, when I was hitting a more attacking shot, probably like a volley drop or maybe a drop shot or a kill, I have a little bit higher grip preparation. If I was at the back of the court looking for more power, I'd move my hand slightly down the grip a little bit. So these are all little things, but again, at the top level, it's always, and I'll talk about this a little later on, but it's always finding the small percentages, the 1 or 2% things that make a difference. And again, the accuracy technique is about accuracy, and again, for me, the true sign of a good player is to be able to hit the ball straight, whether you're hitting the ball straight from the front of the court, hitting the ball straight from the back of the court. The default shot under pressure from every player is the cross court. So the cross court is a shot that people use to help them get out of trouble. If they're doubting themselves, the cross court is a shot that most people go for. But again, at the elite level we're talking about, you've got to be able to hit the ball straight and consistent from the front of the court and from the back of the court. So this is something that I normally start with when I'm looking at a player. So if I start with a player that I haven't seen much before, or I'm just starting to get to know them and looking at them, one of the basic type of routines I do is I'll set up, I tape up the back box. So can you imagine just behind the back of the service box, about a racket length behind the back of the service box, I'll get taped down and I'll tape out 2 or 3 floorboards and run tape down the back. And that's my target zone. And one of the first things I'll do is I'll stand at the back and I'll just feed them nice and easy straight drop shots. And I want to see how many out of 100 shots they can put in the target area. And I'll just keep feeding. I'll count how many goes in the targets. It's a very basic exercise, but it's something that will show me what technique they're using, what leg are they hitting at the front of the court. Are they hitting on the traditional left leg on the forehand, or are they using the open stance? Over the 100 shots, I see how early their racket preparation is. I can see whether their body weight's staying in the shot or whether they're pulling out of the shot. And at the end of the day, the number doesn't sort of lie. So the number gives me a good indication as well. Apart from standing and watching, the number out of 100 will tell me, is it working or is it not working? And I'm a big believer, if you could, whatever technique you use, whether you have a bad racket preparation, you have an open stance, if you're putting a high percentage of the number in that box, then that's something that I'm probably not going to change too much. But if it's not working and the number's really low, that's when I'll try to start to break down, okay, where can we get this better? And obviously I'll start with the racket preparation. I'll have a look to see if the racket's open or closed. Are they playing off the left foot or the right foot? Are they hitting the ball on the contact point? So it's a very simple exercise, but it's something that it really gives a lot of information back very quickly. And to give you an example, like a top 10 player, I would expect out of 100 straight drives, I would expect that they're putting like 80 to 85 in the target area. And that's the type of level when you're talking like top 10 level. So, so that was sort of my technique type of thing. Again, it's something that's difficult to do over this type of format. Obviously, again, if I was standing on the court with my racket in my hand, it would be much easier. But again, the technique, it is important, and it's something that you should put a lot of work in, especially early on. Obviously, we're talking elite, but again, elite for me, you can have elite juniors at 11, 12, 13. And the earlier the technique is corrected, the earlier the technique is understood by the students, it can be much, it's difficult to change someone that's, sometimes kids come to me for camps and they're 18, 19 and they're holding the grip wrong and their whole fundamentals are wrong. So if we can identify from a very early age the correct ideas and techniques, again, everyone will have their own little opinion on it. Everyone, like I said, 80% of us, 85 will agree on the basics, and then every coach, every player will have their own little take on it. But I think measuring it is something that really shows the result. So the next one I was going to talk about is fitness. Obviously, it was a strong part of my game. Something that helped me win a lot of my titles. And I was, again, certainly at some points in my career, I was known to be one of the fittest guys on tour. And so again, the game has changed recently, and it keeps changing. Obviously, the styles and the attacking styles. We're playing on the lower 10 now. But there's still obviously a fitness component is still very important. So there's no hiding around that you have to be fit and strong and in squash. So even though the rallies and the attacking styles, and we've gone away from the old traditional hitting lots of rallies up and down the wall, obviously with the more modern game, the dominance of the Egyptian game that's sort of taken over the tour, there's still a lot of fitness requirements that come into it. And I think I suppose this is for all my points today. Again, as a coach, trying to help your students, you've got to see everyone individually, which is really important. If you're only coaching one way for all the same kids are in your academy, I think you're going to limit your possibilities of success. You've got to see every kid, every person as an individual, and if you don't, I think you're going to be limited. So if I'm not creative these days with my coaching, then if I have to give you an example, if I have 10 kids that I'm coaching, and I coach all 10 kids exactly the same way, I make them try to swing the same way. I make them do all the same training. If I don't find out what type of person they are, every kid learns differently, finding out their personalities, I'm really limiting my chances of success as a coach. So understanding your students from a very early age, finding what makes them tick. Everyone has a little bit slightly different personalities. We all learn in different ways. And as a coach, you have to be creative in the way that you try to deliver your message. And if you have different ways that you can deliver the same message and say it, you're probably saying it in the same way or virtually meaning the same thing, but you've got to have a little bit of flexibility in how you deliver your message. So again, fitness is all about, again, I think it's based on winning tournaments, whether you're a junior player, a PSA player. To win a tournament, you've probably got to play, depending on the size of the draw, but probably on average to win a tournament, you've got to play 5 or 6 matches. And obviously the PSA is split up only 1 match a day. Junior tournaments, you could play multiple matches over a weekend. But it's very important to try to base your training and your fitness around this, having the ability to be able to play back-to-back matches. This is important. One second, so fitness comes down to, again, how long the matches go for, how long can you stay in the rallies, heart rate zones. You talk about the sort of the red zone, that's the heart rate zone when you just get to that maxed out moment. And it's very important to base your training around this. It's not about how fast you get to the red zone, it's how long you can maintain in the red zone. And you see the top players there, they wear the heart rate monitors these days sometimes when they play PSA, and they're very quickly close to their max heart rate, like anywhere, depending how old they are, but let's say it's between 180 and 190. The key to it is how long can they stay in that period for, and that's what your fitness and your training have to be based around. So obviously different options these days. There's lots of options for fitness. Being creative with what you have, and this is a good example of what everyone's going through at the moment with the coronavirus, that we don't have access to squash courts, we don't have access to gyms. I think it's been very promising to see some of the creativity that we've had with the squash world. We're finding outdoor areas, hitting against walls outside, doing fitness inside the home. So you've got to be creative with your fitness. So I'll talk about a few of the fitness things that I use. And off-court work, traditionally, like a lot of players do a lot of track work. And this could be in the summertime as they build up, but the track is a good option. One of my favorite track sessions was I would do like a rolling 800-meter sprint. So I would break it up where I would sprint 600 and jog 200. So the 600-meter sprint was in 2 minutes, and then I would jog the 200 in 1 minute. So I would do the 800 in 3 minutes in total, but then without stopping, I'd go straight back into it again. So if you're on like a 400-meter Olympic track, I'd run a lap and a half, which is 600, and then jog 200, and then sprint 600, jog 200. And I try to build this up to do 8 to 10 sets. Again, like everything, it's something that you've got to start off with. And the way to base it, whether you go forward, is whether you can make the distance in the time. So if you're hitting the distance and the time, then you would do another one. If you're not getting the time, if you can't after 2, then you would stop, and then you would only move forward after you can keep that up. So that was a track session that I did a lot in the off season. I felt that was a great way. I know traditionally some people do 400-meter sprints, which I think are fine as well. But for me, this was the one that suited me better, that 600 and the 200. So some of the other things I did in my career for fitness was the beep test. I still use it today. If kids are coming to my camps or my teams, I use the beep test a lot. I think it's a great test as well. It's very easy. There's so many apps available now. It's very easy to set up. It's just 20 meters. And again, it's a way of maxing out your heart rate. So the idea is it starts very slow, and then as it gets faster and faster, you got to keep up with the beep. And yeah, depending how strong you are, the first 5 or 6 minutes are pretty easy, and then every level it gets faster and faster. And I think it's also a very good mental test as well. Like the moment you say to any of my students or players, okay, we're doing a beep test, they sort of get this fear in them a little bit, because they know it's not easy mentally when you know you've got to push yourself to the maximum, and you know at some point, whatever you finish, that last maybe 2 minutes of the beep test is really a sort of a really good mental test as well. So the beep test is a good one. I think like a good level should be around 14 as a base. And I would expect some of my more elite players to be up at 17 and above as well. So The beep test is again, it's a great mental test as well, but it's a really great fitness test, and I use it a lot with the players and the teams that I work with. So it's something again that it takes time to build up. So it's something that I would be using on a regular basis, like once a week at least. And it's a speed, because obviously it starts off slow, but by the end of it, you're really sprinting pretty fast. And sometimes when I first started to do it, after a break of doing it, it would take me a few weeks of doing it just to get my speed up as well. So often at the end, if you don't make the 20 meters, if you don't make the line before the beep, then you get one chance. And then if you miss it the second time, then that's it, you finish the test. And a lot of times to start with, I wasn't stopping because I was maxed out with my heart rate. I just didn't have the speed in my legs. So it does take a little bit of time once you hit those higher 14, 15, 16 numbers. But I really think the beep test is a great squash fitness one. There's ones as well. That was the beep test. There's one called the bleep test. Very similar, 20 meters, but you have 5 meters at the end of one end. So slightly different. You start off, but you run up and back, and then you run through the line, and you have 5 meters you walk through, you turn around, and you have about 10 seconds between every time it starts again. And it's the same theory again, but it's just a little bit different. Probably a little bit more similar to squash, like playing a squash rally. And then in between points, you probably have somewhere between 5 or 6 seconds as well. So, so there are 2 variations of it, and same thing on the bleep test as well. You run it until you can't keep up to the pace. Other things that I think for fitness, I'm a big believer in skipping, jump rope. I've designed a lot of programs over the years. For that, I think the skipping is a great way to, as I say, I think it's a great way to get your feet and your brain talking together. Again, being light on your feet in squash, having good balance, good coordination, being fast, that split step is all, I think, using the skipping and the jump rope is a really great example. And not just normal 2 feet skipping. I like to add a lot of variations where the kids are doing different foot combinations, split step, in and outs, 1 foot, doubles, twisting. It's a great way as well. You really see the difference. Some kids naturally do it, some struggle with it. So once you start adding the different beat variations, you got to really have a great coordination. And again, I think it's a great way of getting your brain and your feet communicating together. So as for on-court fitness stuff, obviously the court sprints, everyone does them. The one thing with the court sprints, one of the biggest mistake I think that I see with the court sprints is the technique of the court sprint, how you do the court sprints. And for me, when I do a court sprint, I have where I don't push off the back wall. You shouldn't be pushing off the back wall. It's okay to slightly touch the back wall with a finger, but see a lot of time kids and people running in, sprinting in, and they're going too fast and they're using their arms too much to push themselves off the back wall. So the court sprint is designed to work on your fitness. It's not a arm upper body exercise. So and it's about control and balance. And again, you see some kids and some people do the court sprints much easier because they have a good technique. They're light on their feet. The turning on the court sprints is important, making sure you're rotating your legs from left and right, not turning on the same leg. So over the years, some examples. One that my old coach Joe Shaw and Sean Moxham used to make me do. I used to do 300 court sprints non-stop in 15 minutes. Traditionally, most people they do 20 court sprints a minute. So, but I would do 300 in 15 minutes. So that would be averaging 20 court sprints per minute. And I got pretty good at it. I could do it 13 minutes in the end when I was really at my fittest moments. But I think this is a good one. It's a combination. Obviously, you've got your speed, you've got your turning, your coordination of the court sprint as well. But it also is a bit of a mental test as well. And it's just a rhythm one. You'd be very surprised when you first tell kids that to try it, but if you build up to it and do something very consistently, you can easily build up and get that number. And once you can do the 15 in the 315 minutes, then you try to keep the 300 and just try to bring the time faster and faster. I've also done just 100 in 5 minutes and 3 or 4 sets of that with maybe a 2-minute break in between. Trying to base it a little bit more like playing one game of squash is 100 court sprints, and then you get a 2-minute break in between games, and then you do it again, and building up to sort of 3 or 5 sets. That's another one. Some people, again, some just do simply sets of 20 and do as many as you can with a certain time in between, maybe a 45-second break in between the 20 court sprints. One that I've been doing recently with my team, I call it a pyramid style type of court sprints where we go in between every set, it's 20 seconds break, but I start with 10 and then build it up. So then I go 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, and then back down 50, 40, 30, 20, 10. And in between every one, there's a 20 second break in between, not 20 minutes. That would be too much. So that's a great way to build up the heart rate as well, and testing the kids. The other one I use sometimes is I call it roulette court sprints, where I'll pick a time. So I might say, okay, we're going to do 10 minutes non-stop of court sprints, or it might be 15 minutes or 20 minutes, but I can call out a number, anything between 2 and 20. And whatever number I call out, they have to run that many court sprints. And then at the end of it, then in between, same thing, I give them a 20-second break in between. So, and again, it's just a way of getting them to build up their heart rate. And obviously, if I yell out 3, it's pretty easy. If I yell out something like 16 or 17, it takes their heart rate up high. The quick break in between. Again, so it's all about trying to get it as similar to a match as you can. And so there's some of my ideas on fitness. Included in fitness, obviously, you've got different parts of the game which are important, like speed and balance as well. And again, the things that I think sometimes get overlooked are the little things. And if you, again, I've been lucky enough to work with some top players like Miguel, and I used to have Steve Coppinger and Shorbagy and Sorav, and just to name a few. But if you were watching their whole training session, it's not just the squash part, or it's just not the fitness part. It's their warm-ups and their cool-downs. They do daily maintenance on their bodies. And I think that's a good way of looking at it. Their maintenance that they're doing is they're trying to look after their bodies. And in the maintenance, there's going to be some core exercises. There's going to be some ankle stability work, leg strength work, flexibility, all these, and it might be 10 minutes of core. It might be 30 minutes of flexibility. Ankle stability is a very important one. I think that's overlooked a lot these days. Again, the ankle and the foot is the first point of contact. So when you're running and you're landing, the ankle is the first point of contact, and it takes a lot of the weight. So good example is if you're a squash player, I'm sure at some point everyone's rolled their ankle and sprained their ankle at some point. And when you sprain your ankle, it swells up, and you got to put ice on it and keep it up. And then depending how bad it is, you start back, but you start to do all these exercises to help get the strength back. And you might wear an ankle brace or tape it up. And then the moment, whether it's maybe 2 weeks or 4 weeks, whatever it is, depending how bad it is, at the moment, once you get back on court again and your ankle's fine again, you sort of then very quickly, you forget to continue and do your ankle exercises. And ankle stability is something that's very important, and what I've seen. So a lot of my players, again, they build in all these little extra things that they do. So again, it's just not doing the routines on court. It's not about just doing the fitness. So it's all the little extra things that they do on a daily basis that add up over the years. That helps them make that 1 or 2% difference. It helps them stay injury free, and it just builds up to their things. So, but yeah, the speed works, the speed and balance stuff. I use I don't know if you're familiar with it. I use the half blue ball, the Bosu ball, a lot. I do a lot of lunging and plyometric work on that. I think that's a really great one. But again, the speed and balance, like a lot of kids are either fast, but they're not balanced. And again, it's very important to have control in squash. Like, it's great to be fast, but I see a lot of kids sliding into the front corners, and they're pushing off the sidewall. They're off balance, and if you can't control your body, it's very hard to control the ball. And obviously that builds into your technique as well. Having a big technique or a big swing and sliding in, and you're off balance, you're not giving yourself the best options to try to control yourself. So balance and coordination. To give you an example, when I started to work with Miguel from Colombia, who's, again, you've probably all seen him play. He's one of the most exciting players on tour. His speed and his movement are unbelievable. But when we first started with him, I felt he was a little bit off balance at the front of the court, and we did a lot of work on trying to slow him down a little bit at the front of the court and get a better control of his body, lunging in. He was a good one, and we had to get him to do a lot of ankle stability work as well. And his big jump was when he got that right, when he slowed down a little bit, not to take his excitement away from him or his diving and all these fun things, but just being a little bit more controlled and a little bit more balanced at the front of the court. So I think the balance and the coordination is something that's very important to have. So tactics, we talk about tactics. These days, we're very fortunate. We have all this great technology to do something like this today. All the video stuff, it's very easy. You can take out your iPhone and record things. I think you've got to be using today's technology a lot and helping analyze and take statistics. Again, tactics takes time, and tactics you build a lot of your tactics into your routines that you do, and every routine, whether it's post drive or drive drop or whatever routine it is, it should have some type of tactical ploy involved, of tactical knowledge of, okay, why are we doing this routine? We're restricting people to these shots, and we do a combination of routines, but it should be, I think, routines and tactics that sort of go hand in hand. So but as far as today's technology, watching matches, taking statistics, taking notes, studying matches, it's so many different tools available to us today to really utilize. And but even the basic stuff, like I used to, when I was coming up, my father and my coaches, the two things we used to look at is my rally length and my error rate. So and I still do it today with some players as well, where I'll watch a match back and I'll count the number of shots they hit. I'm trying to average it out. My goal back in my day was to average 15 shots a rally, and to have one error in every 100 shots. And that was very evident when I went back and watched matches. And when I got close to those numbers, it was pretty obvious that I was probably going to win on those days. But on the days I lost, when I look back, my rally rate was too low or my error rate was too high. These are things that you've got to, the kids should be wanting to do this. If you want to take your squash or take it from a junior game to a PSA or pro level, these are all the areas that the players are doing these days. So taking statistics, rewatching matches, finding patterns, they're things that are easily available to us today. And under that topic, I think I wanted to talk about a little bit, and this is something that I try to build in early on, but again, at all levels, I feel this is something that really works well. again, the tactics gets down to sort of, okay, what shot am I going to play? And again, squash is such a fast sport. It's muscle memory. It's that microsecond to make a decision about whether I should be attacking or defending. But I try to break it down to help players understand it a little bit more. And so I have sort of 3 indicators that I want to talk about. And the first one is the score. I don't think, especially in juniors, maybe in the PSA, but in the juniors, I don't think the kids pay attention to what the score is to help them decide, should I be playing an attacking rally now, or should I be playing a more defensive rally? The score can really help, and it's a basic way of teaching kids to decide, okay, should I be more attacking this rally, or should I be a little bit more careful? So if I was playing a match and I'm winning, and let's say I'm 7-2 ahead in the game, then obviously I'm going to be more aggressive, and I'm going to probably, maybe first opportunity, I'm going to take a shot into the front of the court. If I'm 5-8 down, I'm 3 points behind down, and the point's about to start, then I'm going to be telling myself, okay, this rally, I have to be very careful. I have to be very patient. I've probably got to hit more balls to the back of the court this rally. So the score indicator is something that is a great way to try to get across to the kids at an early age, just to help them, okay, think about, as the rally, as they're bouncing the ball about to serve or they're about to receive, okay, should I be looking to be really aggressive on this rally, or should I be a little bit more careful? And so that's the first one. The second part of it is the tee position. I'm a big it's something that I really work a lot on. I'm very confident with my tee position. If you saw when I played, I had a very high tee position. I feel most people have their tee positions too far back, and I think at the front, if you look at the rally, if we look at the tee, when someone hits the ball to the front of the court, someone hits a really good attacking shot, a drop, a boast, you only have one chance to get that ball back at the front of the court. If you don't pick it up on the first bounce, you obviously lose the point. The other way to look at it, if I'm up on the tee and someone at the front of the court hits a drive past me or a cross court past me to the back of the court, I have multiple options. I can try to volley that ball. I can try to cut that ball off. I could run back, and I could try to either get it before the back wall. I could boast it, or worst case, I could always hit it off the back wall to get the ball back. So if you break it down, at the front of the court, you only have one chance. At the back of the court, I believe you have 2 or 3 chances. So the tee position is very important. And when you get back to deciding in tactics, should I be more aggressive in this rally? Just simply basing it on, is my opponent in front of me or are they behind me? And again, making this very aware for kids early on is very important as well. So, so the tee position, and then I talk about, when I'm coaching, I talk a lot about, is the ball in my hitting zone? Hitting zone is that one where, let's say you're on the tee and the ball comes, then you can step across very comfortably and the ball's like shoulder height. And it's a perfect type of thing. You could really do anything with the ball. You could put it in short, you could flick it, you could push it deep. The hitting zone is very important. And so what I try to, if you combine all those 3 things, the score indicator, the tee position, and the hitting zone, for me, if I want to hit an attacking shot to the front of the court, I need 2 of those things to be in my favor. I need either the score to be in my favor, or the ball needs to be in the hitting zone. Maybe sometimes I'm maybe 1 or 2 points behind, but I've got a great tee position and the ball's in the hitting zone. So I try to talk about those 3 things with my kids and students, and try to build those into the routines as well. So thinking about the score, thinking about tee position, thinking about, is the ball in the hitting zone. All those 3 things are great indicators to help educate the players to, again, it's again, the sport's so fast, don't have time to think. It's what your training comes out of it, and you've got to train the way you want to play. And all these things have to be challenged to your opponent, to your players and your students in training. And it's very hard to get exactly like a match situation, but in training, I believe you can come very close. And every day in your training, you should have a training goal every day. And you should know, okay, today we're going to work on this. And this is our goal today. This is what we're trying to work on today. And, but building those three things into the routines, building those three things into the tactical type of play, I believe really helps, really will help bring out the best. Again, it's something that's easy to do in a relaxed environment when you're on your home court and you're messing around and you're just having fun on the court and you can hit all these great shots. But a true test of a player, will it stand up under pressure, 10-all in the fifth or 10-9 game point, match point? That's when the real test is. And to be a successful coach, I think you've got to try to find ways to bring that into the training on a day-to-day basis. So I hope that made sense. That was sort of it's my typical sort of talk that I do when I'm doing these. Again, hopefully one day I can do it in front of you guys on the squash court, which will be much easier. But hopefully some of that made sense. So.
Fabulous, David. That's been outstanding. Thank you for all of that. It's been a great insight to what our coaches actually need to do. But you've spoken for 40 minutes, and I've got quite a few questions already lined up. So a little bit more question and answer. I've just segregated it according to different parts. So we'll start with first some personal questions.
Okay.
What did it mean to become world number one?
Yeah, I've got the questions in front of me, and I've sort of written some notes down. And for that one, it's a combination of things. Obviously, very happy. I wrote down happy, proud, and relieved. And obviously happy. Again, all the hard work to get to world number one. To be top of the table when you see your name, it makes you, obviously puts a smile on your face. I was very proud of becoming a world number one. So my name goes in the record books with all the other amazing champions in our game, and relieved. I suppose it's just that all the hard work was worth it. I sacrificed a lot. I moved away from Australia when I was 18. And I've spent half my life away from my family and overseas. But so I suppose obviously that when you sacrifice something and you achieve your goal, I think obviously you're happy. I was proud, but also relieved that it was worth all the pain and all the effort. So
yeah, fabulous, and it's an unbelievable achievement which we all aspire for, but only the few get there. All right, so you were world champion, world number one, both of them. But as a junior, you were not number one. And that's we currently in India, especially, and all the coaches, we have about 80 odd coaches here with us today. All of them want their juniors to push really hard to become to become number one in their state, number one in the national championships. And that's the finite goal. Very few of them actually are thinking world number one. They're all thinking a short-term number one. So what are your thoughts on that, firstly? And to make it a little bit longer, is what did you do differently to change from being a good junior to becoming a world number one?
Yeah, I think it's important, obviously, on the mental side of it, obviously having goals and again, writing things out and having short term, which is sort of like 3 to 6 month, midterm and long-term goals. And depending where you are and what level you are, again, main thing with a goal is it has to be challenging, but it has to be realistic as well. And again, otherwise, again, you need little goals. And again, it's hard to motivate kids if there's no sort of light at the end of the tunnel. And again, kids to know, okay, if I train hard these next 2 or 3 months and I've got a tournament coming up, they have a goal and there's something to really shoot for. So I think having goals and ambitions to become number one in the state or number one in the country, but it should always be reassessing your goals. And once you achieve something, you need to make it harder and harder for them. So, and again, it has to be challenging, but it has to be realistic as well, depending on where the level is and where they are. But again, when I started off in juniors, I wasn't. I started like under 11s, and I started young. My parents played, and I played from 5 years onwards. But I was good, so I was probably in Australia under 11s, under 13s. I was probably top 10 in Australia. And then every age division up, I got better and better. So by 15s, I was maybe 4 or 5 in Australia. By 17s, I was like number 2. And then by 19s, I was the number 1 eventually. But I had to work hard. I was more, as a player, I was a good athlete. I played multiple sports in Australia, where, like you guys in India, we come up playing soccer and cricket and football, and I was whatever I could do to play sports. I love playing sports, and as a player, I was naturally pretty fit and strong. My technique was pretty solid. I was probably more of a consistent type of player. And then as I got older and older, and even into my PSA days, obviously I improved my attacking game, and I feel what made me successful was I could win on a bad day. I had a plan B option. And if I could walk on court and my shots were working and my attacking game and my volleys and everything was working, then that would be enough to win the day and get me through to the next round. But there was lots of days. It's pretty hard to play perfect squash every day. And there was a lot of days where I went on the court and my shots were not working, or I was getting frustrated too much, and I could rely on my fitness and my mental strength and my determination to get me through. And I look back on a lot of tournaments and I look at the second round or the first round, and I just won a match in 5, but which was just from determination, from fitness, doing anything I could do to win that match. And that kept me in the tournament. And then hopefully overnight or within a day, I could fix what was going on, and then I would turn my game around and go on and win the tournament. And if I didn't have that fitness or I didn't have that mental strength, I probably would have lost in the second round. So having the different that mental, the fitness, like again, all 4 areas I relied on, and I think it's pretty hard to walk on. Like I think over a whole year, if you measure it over all the matches I played per season, there was probably let's say 5 matches per season, for 5 matches a year that I would walk on, and everything would be perfect. And whatever I would do, it would work. I felt great. The ball went where I wanted to. Everything was working. Every other day, I feel there was always little X factors that I had to overcome, and my ability to overcome them made me successful. And it might be things like I might have had a bad sleep. I might be low in energy. I might be being homesick. I might have a slight injury, or my back might be sore, or my legs might be sore. There's so many little factors that all the players and the top players have to overcome. And the measure of success is trying to find ways to win on a bad day. So as my junior career got more and more, I found ways to do that. And then obviously improving my technique, improving my attacking game. So, but yeah, I think it's important that the kids have goals and ambitions, and there's nothing wrong with dreaming and having goals to be eventually world number 1, world junior champion, Indian number 1, winning tournaments. So I think it's important that the kids do have goals. So,
thank you. Okay, who was your most difficult opponent?
Yeah, tough question. I get this one a lot. Again, I was very fortunate. I had a long career. I managed pretty well. I didn't have too many major injuries. I was pretty consistent. And again, I feel like I played through like three sort of generations of players. And when I first started and breaking into the top, my first main competitors was Peter Nicol and Jonathan Powell and John White. They were sort of my 3 main competitors in the first part of my career when I started to win British Opens and my first Worlds. In the middle part of my career, it was players like Shabana, Gaultier, Willstrop, Darwish. There was Ramy and Nick Matthews sort of came in at the end of my career. So, and then at the very end, obviously Shabagi and those type of players as well. So I was fortunate enough to play through sort of 3 different generations, and it's very hard to say one player over another player. All the players, Terry Linku, all the players I've named have been probably world number 1 or won a major title. So it's very difficult to pick just one player. So
Okay, fabulous. Okay, we go to a few general questions, and
yep.
One which a lot of the coaches have asked. I know it's difficult to put a finite answer to this, but what should a typical training routine of an elite squash player be? And number of hours. Basically, talk
Yep.
about number of hours and what else. And once again, if you could just give a little breakup, because most of our coaches here today are working with teenagers. So we're not talking pro players first. We're mainly talking teenagers. So if you could give us a little bit inputs for a teenager.
Sure. Is quality over quantity. The quality of a training session has to be there, and people ask me, come up to me and they say, oh, in my best days you must have been training 7-8 hours a day. And no, I wasn't training 7-8 hours a day. So it's not for me how long a session goes for, it's the quality of the session. And for me, it's about having, and again, 16 years is a good age to talk about. But what I want to do is I want them to be, you've got to have a plan in place. And the players I've worked with, and you look at the top players, and again, fortunate to work with like Shobagi recently, and then Sorav recently as well, that they have a plan in place. And they come to me, and obviously I work with them on court, but they have their gym program. They know exactly when their rest days are. They know exactly today's 2 sessions or today's 1 session. I've worked with a lot of players before Cornell. I had my own academy in Florida, in Orlando, and I had players come. And the biggest mistake, and this goes all the way down to juniors, there was no plan in place. And I think it's very important as a coach and a player that you sit down and you write out a weekly plan, and the kids follow that plan. And there's reasons why you've got that plan, and you explain to them, okay, we're doing this fitness today, and this is why we're doing this fitness. And when we do our squash sessions, this is going to be a more skill-based session. Today's court session is going to be a tactical session. But you need that plan in place. If I saw lots of people come to me and I liked the training because I would set the training for them, and I would tell them, okay, you're getting up at 7 a.m. today, and we're doing a fitness in the morning, and we got squash at 11, and then we're doing another match practice in the afternoon, and then we're going to finish with yoga at the nighttime. And they liked it when they were with me because I was controlling their day-to-day activities. Where they go astray is when they go back to their either home clubs or home places, and they don't have a plan. And if students are waking up in the morning and not knowing exactly what they're doing, then they're wasting time, wasting opportunities. So whatever age it is, I think you've got to have a plan in place. And I think putting the kids, I use it like getting out of their comfort zone. And obviously I'm sensitive to it because I really paid the price. I moved away from Australia. I moved away from my family. I wanted to be world number 1. I wanted to be world champion. I knew I couldn't do it in Australia with the current environment. So I went out of my comfort zone. So I find sometimes players get into the same routine. They don't vary up their training enough. And everything's just a little bit too easy for them. So I think having a plan in place is so important. And whether that's a 14-year-old, a 16-year-old, an 18-year-old, as a coach, you've got to have a plan placed in, and again, be very open with the student and talk to them about the plan. knowing exactly, okay, we're doing this for this reason, because this is going to help you in your fitness area and technique area, tactical area, mental area. So having the plan is very important.
Fabulous. Okay. In fact, we have a player who is with us right now, who's part of our coaching team, but he has worked extensively with you. So that's Harry. Harry is also online. So if you could just tell us a little bit about, how was it training him, and how is it training Saurav? How is it training Harry?
Good. Hey, Harry.
Were they
Nice
disciplined enough?
Hi, David.
Nice. Hey, buddy. How are you, mate?
Yeah, I'm good, David. I've been doing the 300s to stay away from Corona. So staying safe.
That's a good way, mate. So how's the back?
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, now I'm using this time to rest more. And yeah.
No, again, I've been fortunate enough to work with a lot of the Indian squash players, and again, I find they bring a lot of energy. They enjoy it. You can see they're doing it. This is the same thing. They're paying the price. They're sacrificing a lot to do it, and it's not easy. And the reward's not always there. But I've always enjoyed, again, working with Harry. And again, his fitness has always been very good. Obviously, the days he was with me, we were working on obviously trying to get him. He was similar to me in a lot of ways. His basic game was very strong. We were trying to work on getting him more confident with being more aggressive on the court. Again, the players, obviously Saurav, I've been helping a lot recently as well. So I've really enjoyed working with him, and he's working very hard. He wants to go higher. He broke into the top 10, but he's not. I know he's not done yet, and he really has aspirations and goals to break into the top 6. And I really believe he can. I've worked with him. I've watched him play all these top players, and I think he's closing the gap. And I really think he can still make it in the top 6 and win some of these major titles. So. But yeah, so working with all the players. Recently, I've got Veer Gichani working with me at Cornell. That's been great having him here. One of the most talented with the racket that I've ever seen, and obviously we've got him fitter, we've got him stronger, we've got him playing a little bit more tactically, a little bit smarter as well. So again, I've always enjoyed working with the Indian players, and hopefully we'll continue in the future more.
Thanks. Great. Okay, to be a little specific, do you have any specific ideas you could give us to improve skill?
Yep. So again, the skill goes into the tactical type of area, and I think something that's overlooked a little bit these days, and something that I try to bring more and more in, is solo practice. I think solo practice is a great way to really practice your skill and to be on the court. It shows discipline, and it shows me how much kids really want to make it. And to say to someone, okay, I want you to do an hour of solo practice, really gives you an indication, if you could see what they do in that hour, how much they really want to be it. And but skill wise, there's lots of routines and drills, solo, using targets. So the skill practice is very important. Like I said, in your training, having focus on, okay, today we're going to work on the volley drop, and this is all we're going to work on today, and feeding it in different ways, adding a movement in, a ghosting, and then a volley drop, trying to have obviously the basic. And then as you get better control, I often put a little target in the front corner, or a little bucket that I want them to try to put the ball into, and to start off with the basic stuff with the skill. And then once they start to build in doing it from an easy ball, then I'm going to start to try to move them a little bit more, because unfortunately in squash, there's not too many times your opponent just hits an easy ball to you. You've got to go looking for that volley. And it's something that was one of my strengths across the tee. I could anticipate, I read the play well, and I could judge when to make the contact and how to sort of drop that volley drop into the front corner. So the skill practice, but again, I really think the solo practice is where you can really practice a lot of this. And And even fun stuff. Like, again, you look at the dominance of the Egyptian game over the last 15, 20 years. And I've been there, I played tournaments in Egypt. You see these courts with hundreds of kids, and they're all on the court, and they're all playing these little cross-court games and fun angles. And again, that's part of squash. And it's something that I wouldn't encourage you to do every day, but it's something that you would try to bring in at the right moment. It might be a warm-up exercise. But the skill has just got to be time and focus. And there's lots of different exercises to do. It's difficult without being on the court to really show people. But again, honing in on a skill is very important, because again, the skill shot, the straight drive, the cross-court drive, the volley drive, the basic type of shots, these are the shots we're hitting 80% of the matches. The volley drop might be only 5%. The hold and flick, or the straight drop from the back of the court, that might be only on a low percentage. But whether it's a major shot that you're hitting all the time, or one of those shots that you're saving for the right moment to hit, you might only hit it one time per match, but you want to be able to hit it when you choose to. And it might take hundreds of shots to do it. Like, I know working with Muhammad, I would come in, I would hit with him 2 times in the morning and then in the afternoon. And if we were starting at 10 o'clock, I know Muhammad was there at 9 o'clock doing solo for an hour. And at one point he wanted to work on his drop from the back of the court, and he wouldn't finish until he could hit 10 drops perfectly in a row. And he would allow himself an hour to do that before our main session. So these are the things that, again, separate what the top players, what the top juniors are willing to do to make that breakthrough, I think.
All right, thanks for that. On a little bit of fitness and movement, there's one question: what is the importance of a split step movement in squash? And do you have any drills or any ways we could work on that?
Yep. Yeah, the speed and the first step, the split step, very important. Obviously, reading the play, but again, you see some players have that natural. Like, you look at players, again, look at someone like Miguel, who is incredibly fast, very explosive. You look at someone like Ali Farag at the moment. He's got this, like, floating around the court. He's a little bit like Jansha back in the day as well. So everyone moves differently, but there's no question that first step, the split step off the tee, is very important. I talked a little bit earlier about when you get to the ball that you have to be balanced, and to get to the ball to be balanced really starts with how you leave to go to the ball. And that first step, the split step, is very important. So I like doing a lot of speed ghosting. Speed ghosting is where it's like, if you start on the tee, it's one maybe 2 steps off the tee, and then you're doing that split step and then a lunge and hit. So if you think about the tee, I have it like the back of the service box on one side, the service line, and just in front, I would have like numbers 1, 2, 3 on one side, and then 4, 5, 6. And I would have a combination of the players standing on the tee. I would call the number out. They do the split step, and then they quickly do the 1 step off the tee, hit the shot, and come back. You could do it with them doing fast feet. They run fast feet on the spot as fast as they can, and then I'll call the number, and then they go hit the shot and come back. So again, lots of quick feet. That's where I think the skipping and the jump rope, that really helps getting that lightness and that spring in your step. But again, slowing it down a little bit as well. Sometimes when you're teaching it, trying to get them to do the split step, not 100% speed, but start off at like maybe 50%. And really, sometimes I've got iPads and I'll bring them in and I'll record it in slow motion, just so they see their feet moving. So, and even watching their feet without not worrying about sort of hitting the shot, but having them look down at their feet while they're doing the split steps, just so the brain can see what the feet are doing. And again, that's why, again, I love the skipping, because I really think it's teaching the brain and the feet to work together. And sometimes you've got to break down the split step and a little bit slower and control till they understand it. And then, as like anything, once you get better at something, you can really speed it up. So,
Right. Okay. I think we're coming to the end of the questions. There's one key one on mental training, or rather mentally. How do you recover between matches? You've had a tough match, and for juniors, sometimes they play 2 matches in a day. What are any tips and key ideas you could give to help our children recover between matches? And what did you do between a tough match, maybe in a quarterfinal, semi-final, and before
Sure.
your main match?
Yeah, it's again, like I said it earlier, winning a tournament, junior tournament, a professional tournament, you've got to win 5 or 6 matches. Some days it's 2 matches in one day. Sometimes it's a quick turnaround. You might finish late one night and then you're on early next morning. Again, and you've got to train the body, and to be able to train. Like a long time ago, there used to be a thing where you would say, okay, I'm going to train for 2 days and then I'm going to have a day off and then I'm going to train for another. But for me, you need to be able to train 4 or 5, 6 days in a row. You adjust the training depending on how you're feeling, and obviously common sense comes into it. And if someone has an injury or they're sick, obviously you're not going to make them train. But you need to learn to train, and just the fact that you're a little stiff, your legs are a little sore, you've got to try to overcome these things in training so that when they happen in a tournament, you're already used to it. So, so that's again my theory about training. The way you've got to train the way you want to play. So you've got to try to base the training about winning tournaments. And again, there's nothing wrong with training, even if my legs are a little bit stiff and sore on my body. It just means I have to warm up more or prepare more. So, and that was typically a thing in a tournament. Every round I got further and further into the tournament, my warm up and my cool down increased more and more, because obviously the harder matches, the longer matches, the longer my warm ups would need to be, the longer my cool down would need to be. So, understanding in a junior tournament, the time between matches can be very short, maybe only 2 or 3 hours, and having a routine, having a plan in place is important. And that starts the moment you finish your match. You walk off court and you know, okay, I've got 3 or 4 hours. It starts straight away. So I'm a big believer in the first 20 minutes after a very hard match. You've got to be making sure that you're eating the right food, that you're drinking enough fluid, a combination of water, sports drinks, protein. That first 20 minutes straight after a match is very important. If you miss that window, it's difficult. You have things to overcome, because sometimes after a match you have to referee, and in junior squash, and the worst thing you can do after a hard match is then sit down for 45 minutes and have to referee. So trying to be creative in ways like that, while you're refereeing, having your drinks and your food ready, that you've changed your shirt, not be sitting there in a wet shirt, that you've had maybe a quick time just to jump in the shower quickly and come back before you have to referee. But even while you're refereeing, sitting and stretching, and it's very important to have a plan in place for your players and a routine. Like, I'm a big believer in a warm-up routine every day. So my warm-up routine should be the same at training as it is if I was playing the final of a world championship. So my warm-up routine should be the same, and my routine between matches should be the same as well. And you need to practice this. And again, as coaches, you've all coached, and it's frustrating when you're trying to coach someone and it's in between games and they don't have their water, or they don't have a towel, or they've left their bag on the other side of the club and they've got to run across and they're looking. And so it all starts with having a plan. And this is something that you should talk with your players beforehand. Okay, making sure, sometimes when at my camps, if I've got a pro player in, I'll bring him in, and we do a thing about what's in their squash bag. What do they do? What do they have in their squash bag to take to a match? And you'd be surprised at all the different things that they have in their squash bag, just in case. Extra shirts, extra grips, shoelaces, snacks, drinks, string, grips, everything, sweatbands, headbands. So being prepared is very important. So I think that's so important to educate the kids on how they're going to do that tournament. So they practice it, so they're ready. They know exactly, okay, this is my routine. I'm finished my match. This is what I know I have to do to get ready for the next match. Because you see it a lot. You juniors, they win a big match and then they've got to play 3 or 4 hours later, and then they're just, after 10 minutes of playing, they're just dead because they haven't eaten enough. They're dehydrated. They haven't prepared. So, and at a pro level, it's the same thing. Obviously, they're not playing 2 matches in one day, but it's about that 24-hour window of recovery. And I can tell you, the moment they finish, it starts, and you see them. I had my drinks, I had my snacks, I had my routine. I would try to get out of the club as quick as possible. I get back to the hotel, and I go through my second phase of my routine where I would do maybe a massage or stretching. I'd start to think about mentally preparing for my next match straight away. I wouldn't be just living on that win. That match is done. That's done. Okay, who's next? And I'd start be mentally preparing. And it's just these things. Again, a lot of times in early matches, you see some of the guys warming up. Their warm up and their cool down is longer than the actual match time, and they do this because they're giving themselves the best chance to perform at their best day in and day out. And but having a plan on the mental side and mentally, again, when you know that you train 2 times hard a day, you've done all this fitness training, you know that, okay, I've won my first match in the tournament in the morning, then I'm prepared to play again in the afternoon. It's just like doing my second session at squash. And the mental side, they go hand in hand. The fitness and mental work together. The technique and the tactical work together. I improve my fitness. I feel mentally more stronger and confident walking on the court, knowing I can play longer. I improve my technique. I improve my skills. That means tactically I can play a different game as well. I can hit the shots tactically. So they all sort of work hand in hand, if that makes sense. So
thank you, David. That's been an amazing, it's great insight for all of us coaches. You showed your endurance level once again right now. You've spoken for 72 minutes non-stop, so that's fabulous.
That's okay. So hopefully, again, I'm very happy to do it. Again, I really enjoy working with all the players from India, doing trips out there, and hopefully I can be back out there sometime soon when this is all over with. And hopefully, again, working more closely with the Federation and the players from India going forward. So
we are certainly looking forward to that, David. On behalf of everyone in India, all us coaches and myself, thank you so very much for joining us and spending this time with us. Thank you.
My pleasure, Cyrus. Anytime. Thank you for everyone, and look forward to seeing everyone soon. All right. Stay safe. Thanks.
Thanks. And to all the other coaches here, thanks once again. We finished our 16 sessions, the 16 workshops we've finished. So thank you all very much for being part of it. And if there's anything further you all need, any help, guidance, we are all over here. We are in it together. Unfortunately, I don't think we are starting our circuit anytime soon. Things really need to get back to normal. Other parts of the world, yes, are slightly getting better. But I think by the time we get back into action will be another few months. We'll first have to start having facilities opened. Then once they're open, then actual training would start. And then we take it forward. So thank you all very much. It's been wonderful. I really enjoyed these past 2 weeks, delivering these sessions to all of you all. I hope you all have learned from it and take benefit from all of this. So take care and be good. Do not go roaming around outside.
Thank you all. Thank you, Cyrus, sir. Thank you very much.
Most welcome.
Thank you, buddy.
Thank you, Cyrus. Thank you, Siva sir.
We will all miss seeing each other at 3 o'clock tomorrow.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Okay. All right.
Thank you, Cyrus sir. Thank you, David.
Oh, thank you, sir.
Well,
Thank you, Cyrus sir.